touching on just your background and life in travel, like what made you gravitate towards wanting to see the world?
It's funny. I think part of it is my grandfather when he was a Presbyterian minister, and when he retired, like apparently when you're a minister, you never actually retire. They just send you places for like 6 weeks or 6 months or like until they find somebody to stay at this church. So he would go all around the U.S. when I was a kid and go work in New York for 6 weeks or Seattle for like 2 weeks or something, and he'd always send us postcards from there. So like every week or every other week, we get a postcard from Grandpa of a different place he was at. And it's funny, like we have none of them now. We'd read them and then we read them and throw them away. And I'm like, damn it, I wish we would have kept those because I think that was one of the things that got me really thinking about travel. Like actually, what's funny is now I keep all the postcards I send to my parents and my grandma who's passed away, now, and my aunt, and I send to her. They give them all back to me, except for like the ones I really like. And so I actually have a container full of postcards that I've sent to people, to my parents, because I'm like, these are actually kind of cool to have. And so that was one of the things. And then I think my parents traveled a lot for work when I was a kid. My dad worked in Mexico a lot, in Korea. And so there's always something there. And it was funny because I remember when I was in high school, I never thought I'd leave Illinois. I want to be the mayor of my city and the governor of my state. I want to, do. And then I went and studied abroad in high school. I'm like, the world is so big. I want to go see all of it. And so I started to go see all of it. Of course, now I'm back in Illinois, but the thing is, when we can travel, we've always wanted to travel.
Yeah, I imagine too, and I've felt this way personally because I've traveled quite a bit myself, is that you have you just feel much more appreciative of where you're from when you've gotten to see the way life is lived in other parts of the world.
Yeah, I agree. And it's nice because you can appreciate things when you're abroad. You can appreciate things when you're home, and it gives you a different perspective on things. It's like I can't complain about anything. I have a wonderful life. I got a wonderful job. I get to work with wonderful people. You know, and like, and some people aren't that blessed. And when you travel, you start to see that, and you're like, wow, we really are lucky with what we have. So it's been nice. But also, what's cool is when you travel, you get to find new fun dishes to eat, and you can institute that and integrate that into your local meals because I know when I was a kid, like we had like the same 7 to 8 meals, on cycle at my parents' house my entire childhood. Like I know when my kids go visit grandma and grandpa, I already know what they're gonna have. Like I could guarantee what they're gonna have.
So, uh, as far as traveling is concerned, in that first trip, you said you left the country for the first time right after high school on a exchange program, correct?
Actually, well, I guess I went to Canada for a day with my grandpa when I was like
Okay.
8. So yeah, there's that.
That's
Uh, but I went to Australia in high school as an exchange student for a summer. So that was my first really big foray. And so, I mean, I was like, oh yeah, you're flying to Australia by yourself. Bye. Okay.
So, what was that like? Where did you go? Did you go to Sydney?
first or
So I went to a
Melbourne.
town called Temora, New South Wales, which is about 90 minutes from Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, which is like then another few hours from Canberra. I think it's about 6 hours, 7 hours from Sydney. So I mean, it was like the second family I lived with, they lived on a sheep ranch, and like so I'd wake up and there'd be kangaroo outside, and like whoa, hey, yeah, I'm in Australia. This is kind of cool, but it was a cool time. Well, they're like, you were out in the bush. Yeah, I was living out in the bush.
So, tell me about what that felt like for you, just the first time being so far away from home, especially at such a young age.
Well, it's funny. I talk to exchange students a lot of time. Like, that first month, the first bit is so exciting because it's everything is new. And so when I was there, I was like, we're going to local chippy to get fish and chips, or just French fries. I'm just getting some chips. I'm like, this is so cool. And they're like, dude, you're just getting French fries. Like, yeah, but I'm used to McDonald's. Like, oh, Mackers. Oh, we love Mackers, but we don't have one here. And so it was kind of funny. And I'm like, this is so cool. And I like go to the music store and see what the music. I'm like, I mean, I know midnight oil beds are burning. That's Australian, right? Like there's very limited what I knew. So really like, oh my, I was like, man, there's a big world out there. And it was really like, it was kind of like the shades were pulled back. It's not it was close, but like, wait, dude, there's a lot more possibilities out there. And that, I mean, it's funny. I remember when I came back afterwards and I was like in student council, all this kind of stuff. And the lady that was the head of student council, she's like, Mark, you changed. Like you have a very different perspective now than you did before, like before the summer. What happened? I'm like, well, I went abroad and I got to see there's a bigger world out there and it gave me a different perspective. And so it was kind of I mean, it was a life changing experience because of that.
So what were you like before the experience of traveling then? And then after?
I think the change was more. I mean, I was always a fun loving person and these things, but I think that the change was just my. I was more one. I wanted to go more places. I wanted to see more of the world because Australia is not that big of a difference to the U.S. And I'm like, man, this is such a cool experience being like this totally far away from home, but something that's just a little different, but it feels totally different. What's it going to be like if I'm in Argentina, or if I'm in Brazil, or if I'm in China, or something like that? And so that really started to drive me. And then I just love the traveling and meeting the people all over the world. That just kept kind of snowballing to keep me going and going and going.
So then what were the following trips after that first initial stay abroad in Australia? I imagine you probably did like the typical like backpacker thing as a young person.
Just going and staying in hostels.
Yeah. Well, of course I did that. Yeah, you had to do that. It's like
Yeah.
rite of passage, right?
Exactly.
So 16 was when I went to Australia. And then when I was 17, I went to Finland for a year as an exchange student, and did some little trips when we were there, when I lived in Finland. And then my freshman after my sophomore year in college. Well, I traveled some between, but like big trips. My sophomore year of college, when I finished that, my brother had finished his master's, and so he and I went and backpacked like 6 weeks together through Europe. And then I had a German girlfriend too, so I'd go see her occasionally. So it kept going from there, and it just got more and more.
I imagine that's how you learned German, right? At the time.
Oddly enough, I remember this. Because her and I, we were friends before we started dating, but we broke up for a while because she went back to Germany, and then she came to visit, and she stayed for the summer, and I had signed up to take Portuguese at college. It was my sophomore year. And my dad's like, looks at me, he's like, "Why are you taking Portuguese? You're dating a German girl. Shouldn't you learn German?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I should learn German." So I didn't tell her because she knew that I was coming to visit for Christmas that December. And so I took German 101 in college, and I got straight A's and everything. I was like, totally like, I'm going to learn this. I get there, and I'm like, we get in the car, we're driving to her parents' house or whatever. And I start speaking German with her, like, basic stuff. And she looks at me and goes, "You sound like a jerk." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So and after that, I never spoke to her in German again, ever. Like I would speak German with her friends, but I would never speak German with her because like that was such like a traumatic experience. So I was like, right, okay, well, I mean, it didn't work out in the end, so it was probably best. But it was kind of funny that was the first thing.
Was it the specific vocabulary you were using, or just the way that you sounded while you were speaking German to her that maybe turned her off?
I honestly, I'm trying to think, like when you first learn German, it's like, "I am Mark. How are you? This is my favorite song." It probably was something like that. Just think about it. You have one semester of German, but it was I'm like, whoa. And her friends were like, that was kind of a jerk thing to say.
Oh, wow.
So her friends were on my side, but after that, I never spoke with German with her again. And she tried to help me with some German assignments. And when I would write them, I get an A+. When she'd write them, I get a B. And I'm like, nah, I don't want you to help me with my German.
Hey there, thank you so much for watching this excerpt of the Videocraft show presented by Video Husky. If you're a content creator that struggles to organize scripture ideas for your videos, I've got a resource for you. You can get a copy of our free script template. Using it can help you structure your videos and save you hours of time from filming in the process. To get it, all you have to do is just scroll down on this video, find the link in the description, and subscribe to our email list. From there, it'll get delivered straight to your inbox right after you sign up. And by the way, if you're enjoying these videos, can you do us just a quick favor and hit the like button before you go? And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel too, to stay up to date with all the content that we're creating here on this channel. And finally, be sure to tune into the Videocraft show presented by Video Husky on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. We've got links in the description down below. If you want to watch or listen to the full episode, just tap the video right next to me over here, and that'll take you to the entire episode in which this excerpt is from. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.